Well, the 2017 federal tax reform package included the creation of qualified opportunity zones, or QOZs, distressed areas that offer tax benefits for developers and other investors. They were hailed as a potential economic boon, but how has Indiana's economy fared so far in taking advantage of these QOZs, and what does the future look like? Here to discuss these issues and more down, pleased to be joined by Ice Miller partner Matt Anger, also Katz Sapper and Miller partner Chad Halstead, and KSM Location Advisors CEO Tim Cook. And gentlemen, welcome one and all to this special discussion. Chad, I'm going to start with you. These opportunity zones, part of the 2017 tax reform package, in essence, what are they?
Yeah, well, really, they're a construct of tax reform, and probably, brand new program that I'd say the potential for economic development and tax advantage there rival anything that's ever kind of came through the revenue code. But in a maybe a high-level sense, opportunity zones are really geographic locations, that generally follow low-income census tracts. Okay, and so the program entices individuals, investors, opportunity zone investors, to take capital gains and invest those into these opportunity zones. And if you do that, Congress is willing to bestow upon you a suite of tax savings. So
basically, and in particular, he's talking these kind of lower income, maybe distressed areas. So the idea to get some money pumped into these areas and kind of revitalize.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, really, I think the overarching goal here is to get, kind of incentivize folks to invest in these communities and get money. A lot of people are reluctant to liquidate appreciated assets because they're going to pay tax. And so this is a mechanism for them to do that and then put that money to work in their communities.
Tim, as you look at these opportunity zones, do you consider, you're in the economic development game, do you consider them economic development tools?
Absolutely. I think if you look at our clients, we thought we were going to be telling our clients, hey, this isn't a QOZ. Our clients are actually proactively coming to us and saying, is this program available to us? So I think the education is out there, and investors, companies, communities, they want to take advantage of it.
Yeah, Matt, from your standpoint, as you look at these opportunity zones in Indiana, and then with respect to the country, it seems like there's a lot of activity there. What are you seeing?
Yeah, absolutely. The program got off to a little bit of a slow start. We were waiting for guidance from the Internal Revenue Service. Once that came down, what we really saw was real estate developers that were looking at doing developments in these areas to kind of go full speed ahead with those projects, with this additional program kind of added on to it. I think we're now entering the next phase of what additional projects can utilize this program and kind of in a creative way. And I think we're entering that next phase where those kind of programs or those projects take shape.
So too early to tell in terms of the impact so far? Is it just kind of in that formative stage now? How would you assess it?
I think people have definitely taken advantage of it, and projects are definitely going forward. I think we are still in the infancy of the overall program. How large of a scale is it actually going to be at the end of the day?
Yeah, anybody can jump in on this one, but there's a lot of these zones identified around the country, 8,600 nationally, I think more than 150 here in Indiana. Tim, can you talk about maybe some specific projects that people might be familiar with that are identified as these zones?
Yeah, I mean, if you look in Indianapolis, 16 Tech is an area, so is the GM stamping plant, and then as you go outside of Indianapolis to Fort Wayne, the region, different parts of the state, they have opportunity zones that have been identified. That was done in conjunction with the federal government and Governor Holcomb, and they're really trying to target where do they want some of those dollars to go.
From a developer standpoint, is just simply that tax benefit. What really drives them to pursue these types of investments?
Yeah, well, I think it's right now. I think it's primarily the tax benefit, which is let's get that out there. The tax benefit is there's a couple smaller tax benefits, but the large one is if you hold an investment for 10 years, you could have tax-free appreciation in your investment, and it's unlimited in scope, which is a really remarkable incentive and gets people really excited about these.
Are there broader economic benefits to these opportunity zones?
Well, I think from a community standpoint, the hope is that if you drive some capital investment into an area, you start to make improvements to it, you might have additional investment that kind of creates a hub where you're going to have additional projects, whether that's companies, whether that's not-for-profit initiatives. I think that is the goal of it. To Matt's point, we are kind of in the infancy right now of this, but this is a 10-year program, and I think as you get to year 5, 7, 9, the hope of the federal government and certainly the communities is that this is something that's going to be exponential, and you'll really be able to see the impact of it.
In terms of these opportunity zones affecting decision-making, maybe the private sector or at the local government level, are we seeing that activity?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, as was mentioned earlier by Tim, I think people are proactively thinking about where these opportunity zones are and should we make an investment in that area? Should we locate our business there? Should we do our next development there? Because they see the tax advantages and they want to take advantage of them. So absolutely.
I mean, I agree with that 100%. I mean, I'm talking to folks that are thinking about starting a business or relocating a business. And I mean, I don't know how you can overlook opportunity zones. The tax benefits associated with that are just too great. So you have to give a lot of consideration if you're going down that road.
You know, for some of these bigger projects, you have major investors that have a lot of wealth, they have a lot of tax that they pay. They're looking for ways to minimize that.
Any advantage, do you think, any potential greater impact in rural Indiana? I know we were showing some of the locations, Putnam County and some of the areas, Newton County around the state of Indiana, outside of the metro areas. Something else to maybe help rural economic development, which is a real challenge.
Yeah, it's going to be driven by where the zones are located. Those are fixed, so we can't go back and say, hey, let's make this area zone. That's already kind of, the die's been cast. But certainly for the areas where they have that designation, it's an opportunity for that period of time.
Yeah, and I think we were talking about the next wave. I think that's going to be the interesting component is can we attract in these more rural zones that investment that might not have otherwise been happening. I think that's going to be an interesting thing to watch to see that development. Are we able to attract into those rural areas?
And I think to this point, I don't think there's been a ton, you know, if you think about where the activity is, I think the activity has been concentrated on more urban areas.
Right.
So if we think around the state, downtown Indianapolis, downtown Evansville, downtown Fort Wayne, that's where the lion's share of the work is because there's infrastructure there for development and projects. And so it's going to take a more communal effort in the rural areas with partnerships with localities to kind of make that a realization.
These qualified opportunity zones set to expire, I think, in 2026. So we have some time here. But as you look into the crystal ball, any expectation that the economic development landscape may have changed by then, or it may have an impact on the landscape?
I think that is the hope, that once you get out 10 years, you look at an area and you say, this is something that would not have happened but for that economic opportunity. And I think there's going to be pressure if you're really trying to crystal ball out that period of time. I think there will be pressure to do something like that. Otherwise, you're going to have a hangover. After that program is over, people are going to say, what now?
Qualified opportunity zones, part of the 2017 federal tax reform package. Maybe a lot of people have not heard about this whole initiative, but we're going to hear more and more about it, especially with some of these projects we've talked about. Absolutely. Tim Cook, also Chad Halstead and Matt Anger, thank you one and all for being on this discussion. Thanks.
Thanks, Gary.
And I'll be right back after this.